Since ancient times, the male has designed in the feminine what he does not understand within himself. When a man feels that something is missing, purpose, direction, sense, he tends to seek out what should be activated inside. And it is at this point that many women come into their lives not as partners, but as spiritual mirrors of their lack. Her appearance can be serene, her speech full of words like energy, expansion, chakras, healing. But behind this sacred varnish, there is a sweet venom, the vibrational arrest of high love. This is the woman who arouses the desire for fusion, delivery, transcendence. But instead of guiding man up, she holds him into invisible ties. Jung called this anima, the archetypal image of the feminine within the male unconscious. When poorly integrated, this image does not lead to evolution, but to emotional chaos disguised as spiritual passion. And that's where the danger lives. Man believes he has found his soulmate, his cosmic guide, but actually plunges into an energetic abyss where his strength begins to evaporate gradually. She presents herself as a mystical initiator, but in practice, she feeds on his insecurities. He feels healed by his side, but is just being drained. The trap is subtle. She speaks of tantra, sacred sex, healing by body, but each meeting empties the masculine, makes him more fragile, more dependent, more confusing. What seemed like a temple becomes a cage, and what seemed love becomes addiction. He returns to her as someone returns to a spiritual drug in search of the same wave that first freed him. But she is not the cure. She is the test. A test that reveals how far man is willing to abandon himself by someone who has not cleaned internally. This kind of woman carries a narcissism disguised as light. It requires total delivery, but never reveals itself completely. There is always one more trauma, one more ritual, one more layer to be healed, and man sinking into the illusion that it is his duty to save her. But it is not. When he wakes up, he breaks the spell. And when breaking, he feels anger, the grief, the guilt, because he believed he was on a mission beside her. But what he lived was not a mission. It was a rest adorned with incense and promises of transcendence. This archetype is dangerous because it dresses from all that spiritual man seeks: connection, truth, energy, soul. But its function is not to complete, it is testing. And when the male understands that, he starts to get out of the mist. Because not every woman who speaks of light is light. Some are distorted mirrors of what man still needs to heal in himself, the desperate search for approval, belonging, and love. When he breaks, something new is born, the seal of clarity. And this seal is the beginning of the true mission. There is a moment on the journey of every man where love seems to be the final bridge for its expansion. He believes he has found someone who vibrates at the same frequency, who understands him at the most subtle levels, who walks beside him in the spiritual awakening. But not every connection that seems to rise, in fact, freeze. Sometimes what seems to expand is just a janelle with open windows. The illusion of the soulmate can be the most sophisticated of the jails of the ego because it disguises themselves as transcendence. And the man, thirsty for fusion, plunges into an invisible pact that removes him from his true rise. This is where the discourse of the twin flame, the cosmic connection that justifies everything, jealousy, pain, imbalance, everything is interpreted as part of mission, healing, process. But this fusion that seems divine is often a staging of the wounded ego that seeks to fill itself in the other. Spirituality becomes a background for a well-disguised codependency. The man believes he is living enlightened love, but is slowly erasing himself. He meditates to her, breathes with her, speaks of soul to her, but still feels an emptiness that is not explained. Because the true enlightenment does not hold, free it. When spiritual journey becomes a toxic relationship, man begins to doubt himself. He thinks he is making a mistake. He needs to work harder, heal more, evolve more, all to deserve the love of the one who says he is there to help him. But this help isn't hook. He comes to live for her approval, her validation, her smile. And the signs begin to emerge. Anxiety, loss of vitality, doubt about their mission, spiritual confusion. Because a woman who is aligned with the sacred does not require your light. She lights her own. It is at this point that the awakening begins. When the man stops fighting to be loved, he begins to remember who he is. The emptiness he felt beside her was not a lack of love, it was the absence of truth. Because shared healing is often just a contract of mutual suffering, where both feed the wounds of each other rather than transcend them. And there is a kind of feminine who says he wants you to awake, but fear your freedom. Because your light exposes her darkness. The true call of man is not to merge it, is to rise. Climb in silence, in resignation, in righteousness. When he understands this, he breaks with the illusion of salvation for two. And in this break, it is reunited. He finds that he has not come to complete anyone, nor be it completed. He came to fulfill his divine mission. And this mission begins when he realizes that the woman he thought was his lighting portal was just the mirror of what he still needed to free himself, the need to be chosen. When he releases this, he chooses himself, and nothing else holds him. There is a silent force that only activates when man decides to preserve himself. When he stops shedding in search of approval, pleasure, or affection, something within him begins to solidify. The energy that retains is the energy it reveals. The man who keeps his semen begins to do with eyes that are no longer in the body, but of the spirit. And it is with this new look that he perceives the enchantment in which he was stuck. That woman who seemed to be her salvation proves to be a veil beautiful, but opaque. And as he crossed it, he finds that the truth was not shared. It was lonely, vibrant, and indivisible. It is at this point that the power of no becomes a sword. Saying no to whom it seemed everything is not coldness, it's clarity. That no does not reject the other, but states to himself. The man who awakens to this level of energy does not need to escape. He just walks away, because his presence begins to carry a magnetism that does not seduce but imposes respect. He stops chasing and walks, and every step of him vibrates with a language that the world has forgotten: silence. Vibrational silence is stronger than any speech. He says, "I came back to myself," and the feminine feels. He feels that he has lost something he can no longer control. The woman who once manipulated him with rituals, sweet words, with emotional appeals, begins to get restless. She feels his absence as a mirror that shows her own illusion, and try to pull him back, but he no longer responds. Because now it is no longer available to be the mirror of the lack of others. He became the test. The man who rises breaks the spell. And its climb is not arrogance, it is elevation. His presence begins to cause discomfort in all that is false. The masks fall, the seductive invitations become noise without echo. And the false feminine, the one who fed on his fragility, begins to move away because he can no longer penetrate his aura. Because the seal closed. And a sealed man is an invisible man for what is vulgar. The woman who once dominated him by emotion now fears him for vibration. And at this final moment, she loses control. There are no tears, no promises, no dramas that bring you back. Because it is no longer in the same plan. He is not running away from her. He is being pulled by his mission. And this mission requires lightness, clarity, and an energy that can no longer be wasted. The enchantment cycle ends. And the man finally returns to the only place where he is whole, within himself. You feel you are wasting something invisible every day, but you don't know what. Do you wake up tired, without direction, dominated by impulses that weaken you and move away from who you came to be? My name is Layert, and on this channel, Gods of Semen, I will show you what no one has had the courage to reveal. Seminal retention is not just control. It is the hidden key to unlocking your true male power. Based on years of spiritual study, scientific evidence, and psychological experience, I found that the energy you keep is the energy that transforms your mind, body, and mission. If you feel constant anxiety, low motivation, spiritual emptiness, or live in sabotaging without understanding why, the problem is not out. It is in the energy you are losing every day without awareness. Here you will understand why ordinary men are stuck, while those who hold their semen begin to see, command, to become dangerous to a system that profits from their weakness. Stay with me until the end of this video, because what I will reveal can completely change your perception of yourself and your mission in this world. Subscribe now to the channel, activate the bell, and help us hit the goal of 22,000 subscribers. You are not alone. There is a silent brotherhood awakening, and you have just been summoned. To release someone who seemed to be your future is like dying in silence. It's not just the end of a relationship, it's the collapse of a narrative that supported you. The pain is not just about her absence, but from the absence of who you were by her side. Because when a man awakens from a spiritual prison disguised as love, he enters a crossing that few can stand, the desert. And in this desert, the universe tests its new seal. He sends silence, loneliness, doubt, not as punishments, but as cuttingments. The man who resists this emptiness emerges with a new aura, inviolable. The spiritual desert crossing has no maps or shortcuts. It is the space between the broken illusion and the truth not yet revealed. Many try to go back, because the warmth of absence burns more than the fire of passion. But the few who continue to discover a kind of peace that is not purchased, do not be begged, do not share. It is peace that is born when you no longer want to be desired, when you no longer need to prove your value or be recognized by external eyes. This peace scares, because she takes all the emotional crutches, but it also frees it. Total renunciation is the point of inflection. When man delivers even the desire to be loved, he activates a power that has always been there, but asleep. Your aura changes. The field around it silences and strengthens itself. He walks without wanting to be seen, and is therefore noticed. But now, the look that sees him does not capture him, because he is no longer there to be possessed, but to fulfill a larger call. The respect he begins to attract does not come from appearance or charisma, comes from presence. A presence that carries silence, discipline, and destiny. And then the universe begins to run after him. Not with promises or passions, but with signs, doors, and meetings that vibrate in the same seal. He realizes that he never needed a soulmate, because he himself has become whole. And true marriage happens, not between two bodies, but between him and his divine mission. This mission does not seduce him, she summons him. And he answers, because only those who cross the desert can carry the light without being blinded by it. In this new cycle, there is no more enchantment. There is vision. There is no search anymore. There is direction. Man no longer has to prove that he is worthy of love. He became love in a pure, non-negotiable state. And it is in this state that it becomes a lighthouse. Not to guide lost women, but to illuminate the path of other men who are still trapped in the golden veils of false spiritual love. For only those who died for illusory love can be born for an eternal purpose. There are exchanges that seem loving, but they are invisible rituals of drainage. When a man sexually surrenders to a woman without energy discernment, he opens portals by which his essence can be sucked slowly. The exchange that should be sacred becomes a life force flow. The pleasure, which for a moment it raises, soon becomes a cummy disguised as intimacy. It is at this moment that her look, soft and welcoming, no longer calms the soul. He just falls asleep his discernment. The ego feels flattered, but the spirit empty. And the man does not realize that he is being silenced inside while he feels desired on the outside. Do you feel that there is a sleeping power within you? A spiritual force that claims to awaken? Then the time has come to activate this call with Alchemy of the Gods, my new book that reveals the forgotten codes of spiritual liberation. In this Transformer Guide, you will dive into themes such as Kundalini activation, holy oil crystalline oil, and the mysteries of vibrational transmutation, accessing teachings that have been hidden from the ordinary man for centuries. This is not just a book, it is an alignment tool between body, mind, and soul. Available in physical, digital format, and also in audiobook, you can choose the ideal way to absorb this sacred knowledge wherever you are and how you prefer. Everything is within your reach. Just go to the link in the description and in the fixed comment. Free yourself from distractions, immerse yourself in this content, and begin to live with clarity, power, and purpose. But first of all, I have a novelty that you didn't expect. I have just launched the definitive audiobook, Semen Retention Success Path. More than 2 hours of deep and unprecedented content about the main 6 pillars of seminal retention, revealing how to unlock your life energy, restore mental focus, and achieve lasting personal growth. This audiobook was created to be its daily spiritual base, accessible, powerful, and direct to the point. It is the missing key to align your energy with your destination. What's more, when purchasing audiobook now, you automatically earn 30% off the special ebook, The Art of Semen Retention for Men, an advanced manual with 20 pages of practical techniques to raise your conscience, master your emotions, and live with direction. If you feel time to break with the limitations and align yourself with your true path, this is your opportunity. Finally, if you believe in the channel message and want to be part of this vibrational revolution, become an official member of the Gods of Semen. Members gain early access to videos, priority responses in comments, and exclusive content for the internal community alone. In addition, your contribution helps us maintain this work alive, growing and reaching more men that, like you, are ready to wake up. Now, visit the link in the description and the fixed comment. The path is open, but only you can cross it. The pleasure then reveals itself as a trap, because every time he gives in to her body without conscience, he is offering fuel to an energy structure that does not want to see him free. Her presence seems healing, but her vital energy begins to wither. The tiredness increases, the clarity disappears. He doesn't know why, but something in it begins to go out. And when you try to get away, you feel guilty, as if they were abandoning something sacred. But this guilt does not come from the heart, comes from the vibrational manipulation she has printed about her field. She speaks of light, love, joint healing, but it uses this language as a psychic weaponry. And then her touch becomes a collar. The hug that should be spiritual bond becomes emotional prison. The man finds himself stuck to a bond that has no soul, but still exerts dominion. Because the false feminine knows that the fear of loneliness is the greatest breach of the immature male. She does not master him with screams, she seduces him with compassion. But it is a strategic compassion that keeps it around, orbiting as a captive planet of its supposed light. This process is often unconscious even for her. It is a ritualistic emotional possession, repeated life after life, where man is always what he tries to save and ends up being sacrificed. Until he stops reacting. When he ceases the justifications, the impulses, the cycles, the bond dies. Because the bond only lives in the dance. Silence kills manipulation. And at that moment, vibrational vampirism dissolves. Because there is nowhere to feed. He is no longer there. His soul returned to the temple itself and sealed the door. There is a dangerous belief that infiltrates spiritual journeys, that certain painful meetings are part of an karma to be resolved, an ancestral bond that requires permanence, suffering, and delivery. The man, hearing that he needs to heal the woman beside him to evolve, comes to accept subtle abuse as if they were divine evidence. He convinces himself that enduring his pain is part of the mission, but it is not. This is attachment disguised on purpose. Shared karma is often just the repetition of patterns that man has not yet had the courage to break. The idea that there is a karmic bond between him and she often serves as a justification for the fear of releasing. He believes he should insist, persist, save, as if his evolution depended on her suffering. And in this silent pact, he sabots himself. The suffering, which could be liberation, becomes routine. Pain becomes romanticized as a divine mission. And each emotional relapse is interpreted as part of the spiritual process, when it is in fact just another turn in vibrational looping with someone who doesn't let go because it still feeds some wounded part of the ego. The cruel of these encounters is that it always appears in times of ascension. Whenever the man is about to climb, she comes back with another mask, another speech, another promise. And he falls again, not for love, but for spiritual illusion. He is stuck in a script he has not wrote, but interprets with devotion. And it takes courage to drop the paper. Liberation happens when man finally declares clearly, "This is not mine." This simple act cuts the invisible wire that held it. Breaking the energy loop does not require hatred or revenge. Requires firmness. The renunciation is the key to liberation, because man's true mission is not to fix the other. It is to align with God. And God does not call him to vibrational currents, but to the lightness of truth. When man understands that he should not carry pain of others like trophies of lighting, he relieves himself. And in this relief, clarity descends as fire. He sees that the real karma is not to pay a spiritual debt. It is to repeat a cycle that no longer recognizes as yours. The end of this cycle begins when he stops seeing himself as Salvador. He no longer has to understand everything, nor close cycles with beautiful phrases. Just stop feeding. When the flow ceases, the bond dies, and the man finally comes out of the karmic maze with his eyes free, not like who won a war, but as those who no longer need to fight to exist. Because now he walks through lines that he himself traces, and no longer the invisible wires of illusion. How many times have you believed to have found love, but came out weaker than entered? How many connections that seemed spiritual actually drained your energy, confused your mind, and pulled you away from your purpose? Perhaps what you called soulmate was just another proof that you needed to cross. What if what holds you up today is exactly what is blocking your awakening? Do not ignore the signs. Your transformation begins when you stop fleeing the truth. If this content made sense to you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and activates the bell. And now, watch the next recommended video. It may be the next step in your awakening.